In this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you about my level of surprise, actually, good surprise, about the level of diaspora engagement in the just ended Ghana elections. It's just been mind blowing. I mean, I've looked at or I've had people call me from all over the diaspora, family members, friends, acquaintances, and their level of dedication or their level of intrigue and interest in the political process in their home nation, Ghana, was just off the charts. Some of them will call deep in the night and they'll be discussing issues, like you have family members, even sometimes friends, on opposing side of the political divide, and then it's like, wow, this level of engagement is insane. They are so interested, so passionate about their home country, Ghana in this case. But the sad thing is that in all the time and the energy and the passion that they are showing, as it pertains to even this past successful election, is that they have no vote. They have no voice. And it's just so sad. So basically, this and many other stories, this to me, this is heartbreaking. Looking at their level of dedication, their level of desire, their level of love for their nation. And when it comes to political elections, most of our brothers and sisters in African diaspora, our votes don't count. We just talk, nothing, right? We don't have a vote. And this is the struggle of many of us. So today we're going to be diving deep into the issue of African diaspora voting rights and what it truly means for its citizens abroad, as well as to uncover the path to real change, because there is a path to real change, just that it's been hidden for years. And that is what this episode is all about. All right, so let's jump real deep into it. So, with the exception of 6 countries that I know of today who have implemented or extended voting rights fully to their citizens, most of the other 54 African countries do not have real, tangible voting rights for their diaspora citizens. And the exceptions are countries like Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Senegal, Mozambique, and Cape Verde. These countries have got voting rights for its diaspora citizens. And how they do it is very, very simple. So what happens is that they designate their embassies as voting centers or polling areas, right? That you go in and you cast your ballot at their various yes, it's inefficient, but it's better than having no vote at all. So you go in person in their embassies and consulates and you cast your vote, right? I would say that though that there are countries like Ghana, Kenya, I think Togo, Burkina Faso, and probably a few others who have made overtures, right? Or they are taking steps to get their citizens on the path to full voting rights. But that path is so slow, so lethargic, so uncommittal that sometimes that is even worse than having no voting rights at all. So let's unpack what are the effects of having vote or for our countries as Africans expanding voting rights to us as diasporans. There are several, but let me just capture a few. So one of the key benefits of having voting rights or political voting rights for diaspora citizens is increased political participation. Think about it. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm going to give a few examples that I know. If I take Ghana as a case study, because that's where my home country is, Ghana, their preliminary or estimates, research or estimates of the population of Ghanaians in the diaspora ranges anywhere between 2 to 3 million people, depending on which research you're reading, somewhere in there. So let's say 2.5 million, let's say 2.5 million Ghanaians live in the diaspora. I know Nigeria possibly will have close to 20 million of them living in the diaspora, right? So 2.5 million Ghanaians living in the diaspora. All these people with no vote, okay? What happens when all of a sudden they get voting rights? What's going to happen is that it's going to expand political participation in these home countries. So, for instance, if these 2.5 million Ghanaians have the ability to vote right now, remember this: most of Ghana's elections are won by tighter margins, with the exception of this just ended one, which the margin was in excess of 1.6 million people. It's always traditionally being less than a million. There was even a time that the winning candidate, I think, won with less than 50,000 votes. So, can you imagine having a diaspora of 2.5 million people coming in to also vote? That means possibly the diaspora bloc could become the indicator, the lever that actually wins an election for a country like Ghana, possibly Nigeria too. So if a candidate was winning by say 100,000 votes, and they brought in the diaspora votes of, let's say, even a million, that million can tilt the balance of power. Yes, that is the power the diaspora has. Okay, I'm just putting it in perspective. So all of a sudden, when one of the things about increased political participation is that most of the time, this is also going to affect whether diasporans get to participate in nation building or national development after the elections are done. This is the reason why most of the time diasporans are blocked into coming in to serve, to bring in their skills, their expertise, their network experiences to help in nation building by serving in political office in their home nations. This is the reason why most of the home-based politicians say, hey, you guys, you didn't sweat the way we sweated. We went to campaign in the villages, we did all the work, you didn't do anything, and then you want political power, you want a ministerial appointment? No way. They will block you. I know people who've been blocked. It's just a few, one or two sprinkles that these political parties, they will sprinkle one or two diasporans here and then that's it. And even then, it will just be maybe a director of a state organization and that's it. Not like cabinet level position. The reason is most political appointments are given based on the people that campaigned or based on party politics, the people that actively took part in the partisan politics. And therefore, the winning presidential candidate or whatever is not comfortable, or even if they have the desire to do it, they are afraid of their own party members because their party members are going to come to them, hey, see X, Y, and Z, he busted his backside, went through the trenches to get you elected, and you say you are going to give that position to who? So that is what happens. So one of the ways by which diasporans can get engaged is if they have the right to vote. So in this case, as we're using Ghana as an example, the 2.5 million people that are going to be voting, that means that there's going to be campaigning in the diaspora. There has to be partisan structures, the constituency level or country level representative of all political parties. There's going to be grassroots work. There's going to be campaigning, active campaigning in the diaspora. And guess which people are going to be doing that? There's also going to be fundraising. Guess which people are going to be doing that? It's going to be the diaspora. So when your party now wins an election, nobody can point a finger and say, hey, you did nothing. Therefore, you don't deserve to be a minister or a secretary or whatever function of government that you need to serve. Nobody can say that because now you actually participated. Feet on the ground. You did. Number two, it strengthens the ability to vote for the diaspora, strengthens national identity. And there are some people, because they've lived abroad for many, many years, sometimes the connection back home is a little bit not too strong. But the moment they get part of the political discord, they get invested. They feel energized. They want to be, they feel a sense of belonging. So that is number two. Number three is political accountability. You are president. You won a landslide election, like in this case of Ghana recently. You won a landslide election. And let's assume, for instance, that the diaspora was involved. The diaspora voted massively for you. You won. Now, time has come back 4 years' time or 5 years, depending on which country that you belong. 4 years or 5 years, they have to come back for re-election. And they came back to you, and all the promises that they promised the first time around, they reneged on the promises. Guess what? The diasporans will hold their feet to the fire like never before. So the political class will sit up. Why? because diasporans, because of the level of experience and exposure they've had in very developed democracies, they don't just lie down passively. They are not passive watchers. They will hold our political leaders their feet to the fire. Hey, I'm so glad you're watching this episode. I want to take a short break from this conversation. Firstly, did you know that about 90% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed? Which means there's a high chance you are not subscribed. So if you hit the subscribe button, that will be awesome. That will mean the world to me. It will encourage me to keep churning out quality content like this one. Secondly, if you're an African diaspora professional or an African business person, maybe even an entrepreneur, did you know that your greatest break could just be one connection away? That is why we've created a platform called Find Diaspora Experts, a private online community for African diaspora professionals and African business leaders, just to collaborate and share ideas. So if you are a diaspora professional, imagine transforming your global expertise into direct impact on the continent. So there's no more watching from the sidelines. Our community will provide you with the ability to network with your peers and other business leaders. You also gain the ability to get matched with client projects. You have access to continent-wide investment opportunities, the ability to create and sell your own cohort-based training programs. Likewise, if you are an African business leader or entrepreneur, you are no longer limited by local talent pool. By joining this curated community of experts, you gain access to world-class global African talent. You also gain access to innovative solutions from professionals with international perspectives. You get a chance to participate in our themed forum discussions. This isn't just a network, it's actually a movement. We are bridging the gap between Africa and its diaspora talent. So whether you are an investment banker from Wall Street or an entrepreneur in Nairobi, Kenya, or a business leader in Cape Town, this community is for you. So use the link in the description below to join this community. Join us. Let's connect, let's collaborate, and let's transform Africa. Now let's jump right back into the conversation. Thank you. Right. And then last but not the least, they will influence on they will have influence on policy development. See, all these technocrats, all these highly skilled people who are in the diaspora, their voices are not heard. Their brain power is not leveraged back in their home country. That's the truth. You can have all the ideas, whatever it is. Most of the time, because your voice doesn't count, your brain power too, most of the time doesn't count. But the moment you have voting rights extended to you, immediately you can have joined the party in discussion when it comes to policy. Okay, that is a fact. All right. So with that, let's look at why. Okay, we know that most diaspora, with the exception of those 6 countries that I mentioned, most diasporans don't have a vote, zero. But let's look at diaspora's contribution to the home economy. There's a lot of paper out there, white paper research out there that shows about the contribution of African diasporans back into their home country. We call it remittances when they send money. That's not the only contribution, but you just quantify it in terms of money. So the only way we can quantify in terms of money is look at remittances. Most African countries, not all, but most African countries, remittances account for 20 to 25% in some African countries of their annual GDP. Okay, so those who don't understand what GDP is, let me break it down. Gross domestic product is a big word. Let's throw that out of the way. Let's bring it home. Basically, it's all the money the country brings in at the end of the year. So from the start of the year to the end of the money the country receives or income they receive is equivalent. It's the equivalent of GDP. So let's bring it home. In your home, let's say there's daddy, there's mommy, there's sibling, there are auntie or whatever it is. Maybe you live in that setting as a family. So the family GDP will be all the income. So daddy collects, let's say, 100,000 salary at the end of the year. Mommy collects another 100,000 salary at the end of the year. Maybe two of the kids who work bring in 50,000 at the end of the year. So in the family setting, your GDP at the end of the year is 250,000. Okay, so that is it. So with this, for certain countries, for some countries, it's even far higher. I think like Somalia and the rest. It's the percentage of how much diasporans contribute to the GDP is far higher. Number two, remittances far outpace foreign direct investment for most African countries. Foreign direct investment is when we pick our begging basket to go looking for, when we pick our begging to go looking for investors to come and invest into our home country, predominantly from foreigners. Like, hey, we have gold mine, we need the Chinese to come and invest in it. We need the Japanese to come and invest in it. We need the Europeans. All those kind of globetrotting, raising bonds and all those things on the international market, borrowing, all those things, they are foreign direct investment. With all those monies that come in, that is billions and billions of dollars, typically remittances outpace them. So that tells you that our diasporans are doing a phenomenal, they are having a phenomenal contribution into the local economies. But most people do not know this. Even diasporans do not know about that, about their level of contribution to the national discourse. So I'm just going to, let me just demonstrate this to you. So let's say this glass here, let's say it represents the GDP of a nation. I would say Ghana, right? From what we're saying, 20 to 25% of our GDP inflows come from the diaspora. Let's look at it this way. So I have this glass here, right? And I'm going to point. So this is a fizzy drink for my daughter. So I just borrowing it to. So I'm just going to pour. Let's say this glass. Let's say 20% of this glass is here. It's not exact science, but let's say 25% is here, like a quarter here. This represents how much you, the diasporans, are putting in Ghana's cup, or if you are Nigerian, in Nigeria's cup, right? This is an exact science, but I'm just graphically showing that to you. So this is how much you are putting in. Okay, it's in Ghana's case, remittances amount to anywhere between $4 to $5 billion a year. So you are putting this your $4 or $5 billion that you are sending every month, every week, right? Okay, so picture that. Now let's look at somebody, right? You are putting in this. Let's look at another person, maybe a group of unemployed people, possibly unemployed graduates. Unfortunately, there's another glass, right? They probably 100,000 of them. But because they are unemployed, maybe they're in school, or maybe in my father's village, right? Their economic input into Ghana is probably about this. One drop. It's actually even invisible. You can't even see the one drop here. So compare this with that, right? Okay, this is diaspora contribution to the local country. This is a group of unemployed people. But the key point is all these unemployed people that you are thinking about, they have votes, they have political power in their hands, right? That's the contrast. You don't have nothing. Think about it. Is it fair? But the thing is, most of our home nations, they think that you live in America, so all these local policies and things doesn't affect you. But let's look at it critically. Let's say, healthcare, education. Healthcare policies possibly in your home country may be affecting you more than it's affecting your people back home. Why? Because when somebody gets sick, guess who they come to? You are the one that they will call, uncle, send me money. Mama is not well, or auntie is not well. Her hospital bill is, let's say, $200, $300, $500. Bring the money, else mama is dying. You will run and send that money immediately. So wouldn't you be happy if you had a voice in determining, let's say, the healthcare policy of your nation? Wouldn't that be a plus, right? No, but the same thing, education. Needs to go to school. There's no school fees. Guess who they are going to call? Uncle, can you send us, auntie, can you send us some pounds sterling or some euros to pay for your niece's school fees? Else the school is going to kick her out. And because of the compassion you have in your heart, you will send that money, because that's what we all do, or we all did, right? That's it. Number 3, trade policies. When they are determining import duties and processes at the ports, they don't consider you. You are contributing this, but when you send things through the port and you're going to clear them, look at the harassment that they harass you. Look at the ridiculous import duties that you have to pay because your vote doesn't count. You don't have a voice. You are contributing this, but you're being treated like trash. That's how it is. Let me bring it home. Sometimes we look at the consulate services we even receive in the diaspora, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or in London. You go to the consulate to go get service, maybe a passport renewal or whatever it is. Sometimes the level of terrible service you get is purely because you don't have power. Assuming you had a right to vote, you had the right to determine who becomes, you have the right to say who foreign policy, who determines foreign, how consulate services are run. When they are bringing people to come and serve in the consulate because they know you have power, those people will be careful. They will be on their toes. Why? Because you are contributing. You're also voting, right? So, as I said, using Ghana as a case study, it's not all doom and gloom. And I know some countries are making progress. So, in Ghana's case, in 2006, the parliament enacted a law called Representation of the People's Amendment Act. In short, ROPAA. ROPA was the name they gave. It was an acronym they gave to it. That long name just was that Parliament voted to extend voting rights to Ghanaians living in the diaspora. This is 2006. In 2024, still, there's no diaspora voting from Ghana. There has been delays upon delays and red tape to the extent that a group of diasporans living in the US sued the Electoral Commission of Ghana in 2017. And the judges ruled in their favor that the Electoral Commission of Ghana, in this case, must implement that ROPA legislation as soon as possible. This was in 2017. Till date, zero has been done. Basically, that whole thing has been stonewalled. Nothing has been done. Why? I don't have the answers, but I'm just asking why. So I'm just going to guess why that is happening. And why that is happening, in my mind, it's the complete lack of political will from African politicians. There's complete lack of political will to extend voting rights to our friends and our family members in the diaspora. Okay, so I'm still going to use that. And actually, this is not representative of any particular political party per se. I'm just using Ghana as an example because that's what I know. So so if you look at it from 2006 to present, there has been the two major political parties in Ghana have been in power interchangeably and still nothing was done. So it's not about a political party. It's the system. The system is such that it is not interested, right? It is not in their best interest. It is not in their interest at all to get you, right, to extend voting rights to you. So let me show you the reason why political will is key here. I remember in 2020, Ghana needed to redo their electoral register. And at that time, I think for the 2020 election, if I'm not mistaken, right, it was around COVID was around that time. They coming up with a new register meant that people would have to queue and go and register to vote to get their biometrics and everything done, right? And it was the heart of COVID. So a lot of people were saying, hey, please don't do that. People are dying, it's COVID. But because the government had the desire, the political will, and it was in their interest to see to it that there was a new electoral register, they rammed it through, man. They rammed it through. And thousands and millions of people queued up to go and register. They made every provision possible, providing masks, sanitizers, and everything, social distancing, just so that people would register. So, to me, if the government or our governments wanted us to have voting rights as diasporas, they would do it if they had the political will. So, I'm telling you that the political will to do that is not there, it's zero. And you know why? To me, in my mind, they are thinking it would be so much hard work to convince a highly exposed electorate, okay, who are independent by all stretch of imagination. They are affluent minded electorate in the diaspora. These people are, they've seen, if it's in America, they've seen how elections are done. They are very, very affluent. They ask questions. They will put you on your toes. It is very difficult to convince those kind of people to vote for you. It's much hard work compared to convincing my nephew in the village who doesn't have any job. Going to that village to convince them to vote for you is to convince my nephew to vote for you is so easy. You know, so it's like, which one is easier? Diasporans who speak big English, overly educated, overly exposed, they know it all, be it all, compared to my local villager who doesn't know much. He just cares about where he can sleep, eat, and where maybe go to school, and that's it. Simple life. Most African politicians prefer this electoral block to convince them, to convince you, because you are hard work and you are expensive. That is where the problem is. There is lack of political will. Right? So just think about it. If we got the chance to vote, how transformational that will be. It will be so impactful. It will be so powerful. If you are contributing this, I believe your voice must be heard, at least in proportion to how much you are contributing. I'm not saying you have to buy power. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it is disheartening for people who really, really, really are contributing so much and still have nothing to show. They only sit on the sidelines, watch your elections every night. They don't sleep 24 hours. They are following the election cycle. They are excited. They are passionate. They are arguing. They are even fighting, and yet they don't have any vote. Now let's take it one step. Now, not just the vote. Okay, I believe voting rights is key. Voting rights is great. Only 6 countries are doing that at this point. I have fully implemented that. The rest are crawling. But not only that, but I feel that even after voting right, there must be the next step. To me, I've seen only one country do this, and I'm going to show that to you. The only country doing what I'm just about to talk to you about is the country of Cape Verde. And what I'm about to talk to you about is parliamentary representation. I feel that yes, if we are given the chance, if let's say 20 million Nigerians are given a chance to vote, or maybe 4 million Kenyans are given a chance to vote from the diaspora, that is fantastic. That is great. But can we take it one step further and ask for parliamentary representation too? Because Cape Verde does that. And let me just read what Cape Verde does. The Cape Verde, and I just saw it somewhere. It says Cape Verde actually allocates 6 members of parliament specifically for Cape Verdeans abroad. Right? And how they do is that 2 of them represent each of the bigger blocks of, I would say, the diaspora. So two representation from the Americas. So North and South America, they have 2 representation, parliamentary representation. 2 from Europe and 2 from Africa. So the Cape Verdean diasporans within Africa, they get 2 members of parliament. Cape Verdeans diasporans in Europe get 2 members of parliament. And the same 2 for those in the Americas. This is fantastic. This is fantastic. So and these people, can you imagine? You have a member of parliament who represents you in the diaspora, who represents your voice, so that when you have an issue, you can actually speak to your member of parliament in the diaspora, speak to him or her to effect the change that is needed. And these diasporans, because these parliamentarians, because they are voted for by the diasporas, they will sit up, they will listen, they won't take your voice for granted. So in summary, what am I saying? I don't know it all. I'm soliciting for ideas by which we can turn the page, or a path to creating a scenario where most of Africans in the diaspora get a say in their home country's political discourse. So to me, the call to action is that diasporans must wake up. You must wake up and organize yourself to force this change, else it is never going to happen. If you don't force it, nothing will happen. I believe diasporans, or you, me, all the others, must work together, including working with local advocacy groups, to apply constant pressure. This must be unrelenting, must be pressure upon pressure, we diasporas, we must organize ourselves properly and push this. Else, our home-based politicians, they are not incentivized. Let me know what can be done. This is my opinion. Let me know what your opinion is. Drop your comments and let's begin discourse. Let's begin this discourse. Let's actually expand it, or else our voice will forever be buried. Thank you. Peace. Subscribe to this channel. See ya.